All right, guys, I think we're now live for another Thursday night conversations with Commodores, and I'm so very pleased to have teammates and buddies and life experience, sharing the same life experience now. I've got DMay out of Houston. I've got Jason Smith currently in Vanderbilt, but out of Calera, just south of Birmingham. Good evening, fellas. We've had a couple of minutes chat, but I'm so glad you guys have got some time for us tonight. How you doing?
Great.
Doing good. Excited to do this.
Well, if any of you guys have been keeping up with Jason's recent news, you know that what he's been striving for came true this week. And I'm going to let you guys, I'm not going to talk much. I'm going to let you guys talk a little bit about what's going on in your respective lives and how you're connected once again. So Jason, why don't you lead us off, and DMay, you come on in when he's going to break.
Well, I'll let Derrick talk about kind of his journey, but as a lot of people know, Derrick had first noticed issues with his kidneys since we were like our physicals just before training camp, our sophomore year.
Yeah.
So, and Derrick and I have been in close communications while in school and then after that. So when 4 years ago I got diagnosed, he was obviously one of the first people I called. A lot of stuff the doctors were telling me I was already aware of, things like that. But after a lot of looking for donors and things like that, I actually did finally get a kidney transplant on Monday, October 5th. They called me Sunday Sunday morning about 3:30 in the morning. Let me know that I was on standby for a kidney. Just to hang by the phone, and they called me back again at 6:30. Said, all right, it looks good, come on up. So my wife and I got the car and the kids packed up. We dropped them off at their godparents' house. So thankful for them that they're taken care of. And we drove up. It took a while for them to do cross matches and final things. But then Monday morning at 6:30, they did the surgery and they were done by 9:30, 10 o'clock.
Mm.
And you were up walking by when?
By that night, I was able to shuffle to the bathroom. I had a walker, but I guess you can see those pictures. But then by the next day, I was able to kind of do a lap around the room. I'll say this: the doctors and the nurses staff all have been awesome here. We were a little concerned about having to be away from home trying to do all this, but
Yeah.
my wife and I were talking, we couldn't imagine being in a better place the way they've all taken care of us. And I had a rough couple things, and the nurses and I had some awkward positions, but they were professional about it, and they helped us out with no questions asked, smiling the whole time. So it's been a rough. It's been things like this is what training camp prepares you for.
Yes.
It was kind of like a little bell buckle there at that first day or two, but we including going to the bathroom with very little privacy. But we're coming out now. I got most everything removed out now, so I can wear regular clothes. Of course, I got Superman on, so it's getting better.
And if things go according to plan, you get discharged tomorrow?
Yeah, I should get discharged tomorrow. We're still going to stay in town. I'll have follow-up appointments every week for the first few months at least. So we're going to stay here at least until that first follow-up appointment, and just to get some rest. You don't get very much rest in the hospital.
Sure.
So just to get some rest, let do a little more healing before I get in the car and make that drive back home.
Yeah.
When you get cleared, and I don't know if this is one of your favorites, it's certainly one of mine, and if it is, please go by San Antonio Taco and have a taco for me. if you're still in
San Antonio taco.
food.
Yeah, I'm cleared. Actually, that's one thing. The one big perk about getting the transplant. I'm pretty much clear to eat pretty much anything. Now, there's some things I gotta stay away from, but those are things I don't really eat anyway. So, we've been happy eating for a while.
That's so very great news, and we certainly wish you the best. I know that you've got a lot of marks coming up. You've got to clear, but hopefully each day you build upon that, head in the right direction. So congratulations thus far. I know you've got guarded optimism, but a big smile on your face.
Yeah. Cautiously optimistic has been our mantra this whole time.
Well, before we get to you, DMay, we got some love coming to you guys. I got to tell you who's all on here. Flavius Smith, OJ Fleming, Myron Murray. OJ says, "What's up, fellas? Fight the good fight. Praying for y'all." Myron Murray says, "My boys."
Big word.
Jim Accarano says, "Tell DMay and Superman what's up and that he loves you." Ellen Fleming is now on, and Myron bell buckle still brings back bad memories.
Yes.
I don't know.
Not very many guys know about bell buckle these days.
Yeah, we were the last. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
A couple of years older than you guys, and we didn't go. Watson Brown didn't take us out there.
Seriously, wow.
Yeah, no, we never had a DiNardo bell buckle.
Bell buckle, right?
I know we may get into that later, but we were Dowhower's first year, so we had a Dowhower bell buckle, which, from my understanding, is bad, but it's not as rough as a DiNardo. We heard stories.
I hear from one player, coach, or GA say that it was actually a good experience. It was all for everybody.
It was not fun.
Guys, we got Paul Morgan from out in Hawaii who was thoughts and prayers. So thank you, Paul, for stopping by. Of course, I'm with Jason Smith and Derrick May, teammates who butted heads, one on the O line, one on the D line. But I suspect when y'all came off the field, you didn't carry that grudge too much afterward.
Yeah.
Of course not.
I mean, Derrick cheap shot at me once. Okay.
I knew you were going to bring that up. I just knew it.
We gotta talk about that. What did he do wrong, Jason? What happened?
Well, it wasn't anything he did wrong given the situation. It was our first scrimmage up at Bell Buckle.
Yeah.
And we're chasing the play, but he's already ran past us, and we're running. And maybe DMay ear hold me a little bit, knock me down.
Some of us like to play till the whistle.
And then I looked up, and I'm like, because Derrick and I met the summer before. We lived in with Rock and Freddie V and Anthony Asma. We all share an apartment together at Vanderbilt, Washington.
Yes.
So Derrick was the first person I met when I left for college. I felt like we bonded.
We did.
And I get ear hold, I fall down, I look up, and I just like, wow, all right, Derrick. So I wasn't mad about it, but to this day, 27 years later, I still like to give a hard time about it.
Every time.
Hit on the swivel.
Hit on the swivel. The whistle had not blown officially.
The whistle had not. It was not a cheap shot. It was just all right. Okay.
Welcome to college. College trying to make a starting position.
And Derrick, you grew up, or at least went to high school in Pensacola?
Yes, sir. Pensacola, Florida. Graduated and moved on up to Nashville, Tennessee, and it changed my life completely.
What coming out of high school, was Vanderbilt always your number one choice, or did you trying to narrow it down from some other schools?
I think growing up in that part of the country, I always had dreams of playing for a Florida State or a Florida at that time. But if you can imagine, those guys were competing for national championships at that point. And so I was blessed enough to take unofficial visits to those schools. But when it came down to it, I think I narrowed my choices down to Wake Forest, Vanderbilt, and University of Houston. And after those 3 visits, Vanderbilt won hands down, in my opinion. I have to say that was probably the best decision that I've made at that young age. Even looking back now, besides my wife and my son, Vanderbilt is definitely a top 3 or 4 decision for me. Just looking back over my life, just looking at all the friends and the family that I've gained from that whole experience. It's been wonderful. There's nothing that I wouldn't take back or do differently.
Well, as you were a kid, maybe in middle school, the NFL's leading rusher in the history of the NFL is from your county.
Yes, Emmitt Smith. Yeah,
he was well known in high school. Did you get a chance to ever see him play back in the day?
I didn't get a chance to see Emmitt play, but I played against his brother, Emory. So we kind of butted heads on the field a lot, actually. But he would come back to the community quite a bit. He and I actually, in my class, was Derrick Brooks's younger brother as well. And we actually played together. So I was blessed to be able to spend some time with Derrick Brooks and things like that. So there was a lot of good influence. There was a lot of good football being played in Northwest Florida.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, Jason, growing up in Birmingham, Huffman, one of the big city schools from Birmingham, y'all had some serious competition, not just in the city, but also in the county. And Jason, who was your biggest rival? What high school was it? And do you have any memories of a big win, a big play, or anything that really stands out from that time period at Huffman?
Oh, yeah, for us, especially at the time, it was hands down Hewitt-Trussville. They were our biggest rival, which the irony is 2 of my best friends from church went to Hewitt-Trussville. So we would joke about it. We never took it too serious. Once we were out at a Taco Bell, and then some of the guys from the team, my team came by, and they were, "Oh, Jason, hey man, dude, we just got in this fight with these guys from Hewitt-Trussville, man. They was," and my friends were just kind of sitting there like, I didn't tell them they went to Hewitt, but I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, all right, good job, all right." We had some nail biters against them. My senior year, we lost the game because they blocked 3 kicks.
Oh my!
They blocked 2 extra points, 2 field goals, and an extra point.
Wow!
All coming off the edge. I still hear that thud, that double thud of the kick and the block in my head sometimes, in my nightmares.
That wasn't your edge, was it?
No. I'm not on no edge. I'm in the.
I was going to
I'm
say,
too big to be on the edge. Yeah, I'm in the.
From the interior, not out on the. Well, Jason, when you started your recruiting process, besides Vanderbilt, were there other schools on your radar? Had you considered any other schools, or was Vanderbilt your locked and loaded school, so to speak?
Well, like Derrick, growing up where I was now, although I never had any interest whatsoever at all playing for Alabama, but I was an Auburn fan growing up. I did a couple of unofficial visits there. I think I hurt myself. I was offensive lineman in high school. I think I hurt myself when I went down for the spring game, and this was when Terry Bowden was the coach. And I went down there and I took a picture with the offensive lineman, and they all had their arms around me like I was a little child, because they were all 6'5" and up, and I'm right at 6'2", and I'll hold on to 6'2" to the day I die. But I think that kind of, he's a little shorter than what I wanted. I think the visits to Arkansas. Really, it probably, I guess, came down to Arkansas and Vanderbilt. And then, first of all, that's not much of a choice anyway. Between Vanderbilt and Arkansas, it's Vanderbilt all day.
I was going to say.
But it wasn't, but it was one of those, at least Vandy's better than Arkansas. No, it was, in going to different, either as a player or on a recruiting, you see all these other cities and around the SEC.
Oh yeah.
They're not really cities.
No,
It's a college town and that's it. But so having Nashville being there, I was always familiar with it. I've been up to Nashville a lot, living in Birmingham. I knew I had friends up here already, so I was comfortable. Like we kind of talked about it before, James Manley and Brian Boykin were at Huffman while I was there. So I got to see them kind of go through the process, and I was a freshman. I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. They're both going there. So when Randy start sending me letters, that automatically I already knew kind of what that meant. So and my that'd been my senior in high school was when they had the big win at Georgia. So
Yes.
that was kind of the okay. My dad always asked me, look, you can go somewhere and just be part of something that's already going on. You can go somewhere and try to be part of the change.
Yeah.
So that was kind of also what made me decide that, like the advertisement says, the city, the school, the city, the degree. Yeah, it's hard to turn that down.
it really is. I don't think there's another, well, I know there's not in the SEC, another university that can offer all three of those across the board.
It's true.
If I hate to say this, but Mississippi State is it's a college town, but for the university, it's a very small town. Auburn is a bit bigger, but most of these towns, except maybe Athens, which is a college town, but gotten bigger, Tuscaloosa, same way. Nashville's a metropolitan city that has an SEC university in it.
Right.
We've got some more folks I need to tell you who's jumped on board. Myron says, you're 5'11", don't lie, Jason. You wanted me to remind you to play through the echo of the whistle. And Jim Aguiano says, Paw. We've got Leathers. We've got one of my former teammates, One Donut, Mike Healy's jumped on board. Mike's in the Charleston area. Russell Nicole is with us. Tyler is with us. Thank you guys for jumping on board with Jason and DMay.
Yeah. Love those guys, man.
And we're gonna just kind of jump around a little bit, but I want to stay in the Vanderbilt time period. Derrick, let me ask you this, and then Jason, you can follow with him. But Derrick, when you first got to college, when you first got and started working out with the freshmen, and then the upperclassmen came on, what was it? What was that moment, that first fall, that really showed to you, I'm not in high school anymore, and all of these guys are really good athletes. I got to step up my game if I'm going to compete and be able to play. Did you have a moment in practice, anything that really stuck out?
I would say, well, I probably had a few moments like that, to be honest with you. I would say the first week I got here, because I ended up moving up about 2 weeks after I graduated from high school. And like Jason was saying, we lived with Fred Baker, Rock Batten, Jason, Anthony Asma, and we were working out with the teams, and just the intensity of the workouts with Todd Suttles and Chris Gaines. That by itself was a come to Jesus moment,
Hey, Chris was a teammate of mine, and I had the pleasure of being on the scout team offense against Chris for 2 solid years. Not a lot of fun.
It's always intimidating when your coach gets out and runs the sprints with you. So it definitely gets your attention. But I do remember, after the first workout, I came home and I went to sleep immediately. And I remember Nashima Hillman woke me up and was like, look, she just had that conversation with me, like, look, this is different. You got to take care of your body. You got to eat. You got to get your rest. It's a whole different ball game. And if you remember, Jason, she was pregnant that summer. Remember?
Yeah, with the future Big Ten freshman of the year.
Yes. But she was pregnant, had her child, and came back and played that same season. So she definitely got my attention. immediately about how you had to kind of carry yourself much differently as a collegiate athlete. But I do remember one of the first scrimmages at Bell Buckle, I lined up against Big Chick, James Manley. And I just remember coming off the ball as hard as I could, and he paid me absolutely no attention whatsoever. He shed the block and ran and made the tackle. And that was probably the most humiliating play of my entire career in that one particular moment. I just felt like a rag doll. So yeah, in terms of memories, yeah, that was definitely a game changer for me.
Well,
just facing James Manley.
Memorable play. Did you have a coach chirping in your ear, or were they letting you just try to figure things out right then?
Well, Coach Simmons at that time, he was, I think he knew what I was up against a lot better than I did at that time. So he kind of talked to me and gave me a lot of clues and techniques to kind of use my size and aggressiveness to my advantage. Mm-hmm. He was a very technique-oriented coach. He wasn't just going to coach brute force, but he wanted you to kind of think through how to take advantage of different players' attributes, because you have to understand who you're playing against. If they're aggressive, if they're strong, how they choose to play, you can kind of alter your techniques for that, for that particular situation. Because playing in the SEC, just about every week, you're going to be facing guys that are potentially going to be going into the draft. And I think we started off that year with Alabama, if I remember correctly. Mm-hmm. So, we were playing against teams that were loaded with talent, the likes of Danny Warfel and some of those teams out of Florida, Javon Kearse, different guys like that over the years. So, you really have to, think about a lot as you're lining up on the ball and everything. But that's the day and every day for a Commodore. Every time you line up, you're playing against guys, that earn that reputation and are trying to live up to the legacy of their own programs as well. So you got to come ready. You got to button up and be ready, man.
We've all heard many, many times that the SEC is the third division of the NFL.
And or right now we're probably at least the NFC East.
Right. But when you're 1-2-1 and you're the Eagles and you're leading the conference,
right?
Well, Jason, talk about your wake up. I'm in college. All these guys are welcome to the SEC moment for you.
I had a couple with some, more painful than others, but the first one also involved James Manley. Again, hey, it's somebody I know from high school. He's gonna look out for me. We're doing the first time in full pads. It was kind of just drills, you're doing one-on-one and kind of get warmed up. And my very first collegiate hit in college practice, I did it. All right, I got up. And, we did okay. He wasn't, Chick wasn't even going that hard on me. It was just, but I got up, I went back in line. I just spit out I spit out a tooth.
Yeah.
Yeah, he knocked the tooth loose.
Wow.
So all right.
That was your warm-ups? That
was my first ever hit. I lost a tooth.
Holy heck.
Yeah. And then after that, I started looking right. Coming from, like you said, I came from a city school in Birmingham. They don't necessarily have the biggest budgets or things like that. So we'd have maybe one person with, maybe two things of water jugs that they're trying to give to the whole team. So if you're lucky, if you get a water bottle. So I remember being at in individual positions during practice, and there was the trainer was there with like water and Gatorade right there. And I'm thinking, oh, she's gonna go around to everybody else. I kept looking. I was like, you're just here for us? It's like, yeah, I'm with you. Oh, wow. So we can like get water whenever we want to? oh wow, that is nice. This is big time now. I can just open my mouth and they'll give me some water. That was
Hey,
and then
Well, they were trying to warn you of the potential for cramps
yeah.
later on at dinner. Guys getting sniped left and right from all the workouts and stuff.
well, it's those little things that you now you take it for granted, but when you didn't
Yeah.
know how the system worked, those are huge
Hmm.
things. But
Yeah. Oh yeah.
that's so eye-opening that when you recognize that, man, we can get water, Gatorade, whatever we need.
Oh yeah.
Hmm.
I think that's pretty cool. That's a wake up.
And then the final one, it was we played. So growing up, in Alabama, and our first game was against Alabama. I remember we were getting ready to go out in the field for warm-ups, and standing right there it was the kicker, Michael Proctor. It was the kicker. Nobody gets excited about the kicker, but actually seeing with my own eyes that up close, the Alabama jersey. I had gone to some unofficial visits there in some games, so I'd been close to it, but just knowing, no, this time I'm about to play against them. I'm not there to watch them play. I'm there to play against them. It
Yeah.
was okay. Yeah, this is what we want. This is what all the work for was up to this point.
Hey, I had the same moment. I grew up in South Alabama, had the same thing. Had an uncle who played at Alabama, grew up an Alabama fan. I was the first immediate family member who didn't go to Alabama for a couple of generations. So I go, and they're, the rest of the family's like, what is it? But I had a similar moment. You're on the field and you're not there to root for them or watch them. You're there to compete and beat them.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, Derrick, let's talk about, as you got to get more, for both of you guys, you get thrown into the football aspect before you get thrown into the academic. I mean, which
Sure.
we can't put aside because Vanderbilt is so academically oriented, and it really separates those who should be there versus those who can't be there. And that's because either they don't want to put in the time studying or they just can't make it academically. In theory, before you get recruited, you qualify to go to school there. But we all know that everybody has their own priorities when it comes to academics. We're not all there to be engineers. We're not all there to finish whatever program that you start. And I'm not implying anything with you two gentlemen. I'm just saying you could probably think of some of your classmates, some of the guys who you signed with, that they weren't as academically oriented as you were or someone else was. It's that way with every class. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But my question is, for both of you guys, is when did you get comfortable, if at all, some people don't, when did you get comfortable academically throughout that first year, or maybe it took into the next year where I've got this. I know what I need to be doing with football. That's already, I know it's hard, but I know what I got to do. But you also have that academic component. And for a D1 athlete in the SEC, that's no joke. You're exhausted all the time because of your commitments. So sorry to be so long-winded, but Derrick, when was it from an academic standpoint that it kind of rung with you that, hey, I can do this?
In all honesty, I would say either towards the end of my spring semester or the beginning of my fall sophomore semester. That first year for me was kind of a whirlwind, just kind of getting used to the collegiate atmosphere, the sports. I was really truly focused on trying to start my freshman year, which I was able to do, but at the cost of I actually made my lowest GPA that very first semester. And so it was kind of a time where I kind of had to have sit down with, I think our academic advisor at that time was Derrick Gregg. And then
Bobby.
then it changed. Then it changed to
we had Bobby Powers.
We started off with D. Gregg the freshman year. Remember going to 5:30, 6 a.m. study table with D. Gregg?
That's not like Derrick.
Yeah,
As a side note, I don't know if you guys have kept up in the news with Derrick. You know, he was at Tulsa as the AD up until a couple
right.
of months ago. He's now on the executive committee for the NCAA. He,
Wow.
he's doing some great things. Go back to what you're saying, Derrick.
Well, I was always impressed with him because no matter how early we had to be at study table, he was always there, fully dressed with a shirt and tie on, and he was never late. So that was, he definitely set the tone very early for us. But then I think he left, and then I think Bobby Powers stepped in, and
Jim
so
Booz came in too.
Jim Booz, yeah, those guys stepped in and really taught me how to understand what was being asked of me off the field, in terms of also honestly. Rosie Noble probably had one of the biggest influences on me as well, because Rosie seemed to have the keys to the castle. He understood how the system worked. He had some type of X-ray vision to see behind the curtain. And they really sat down and really broke down to me how to understand my program, how to calculate a weighted GPA, how much everything is weighted all throughout, and plan your classes every semester all the way through graduation. And so I can honestly say that's what helped me get into grad school, because from that first semester on, my GPA increased substantially every single semester I was there. So I've always, through my nieces or family members, tried to pass that type of, experience on to others, just to kind of help it click. Because I think at some point, through all the whirlwind and the roller coaster, it's gonna click for you at some point. Because just like you were saying, there's always some guys that it's not really gonna click for early on. But I think the way they handle academics at Vanderbilt makes them stand out really against any other school in the country. They do a wonderful job of giving you all the tools you need to be successful.
Derrick, going from just surviving to thriving. In
Yes.
your first semester, your sophomore year, you were figuring that out, is what it sounds like.
Yes.
I was redshirted my freshman year and thankful for it, because it let me
Right.
do, the growth on the field and in the classroom. What about you, Jason? When did you get comfortable academically and figure it out like Derrick was talking about?
Well, kind of like Derrick, I had a rough first semester.
We all do.
Yeah, and I actually, what helped me, because going, like you said, going to, of course I did well in high school, but when everybody's, once they hear you're going to Vanderbilt, and then it's oh wow, that's a tough school, and you just hear that, you keep hearing that over and over all spring long leading up to it, and it can get it almost where it gets kind of intimidating.
Yeah.
So I'd almost had in my mind made up that, man, if I can just, like you said, just survive. If I can just survive, that'll be good enough.
Right.
And but then I get there, and that's why I encouraged my daughter and my sons too, but any young person, it's the people you hang around that have such a big influence on you.
Yes.
Because that was the mindset I had, was just surviving. But like Derrick, Myron, Alfonso, other guys from our class, like Derrick said, Rosie, you watch Rosie, you realize, no, that's not, we don't have to just survive. We can,
Right.
and it doesn't have to, it's not only we don't have to, it's not okay to just try to survive. You have every right to be here just like those other students are.
That's right.
And then that too, once you get in the classroom, you realize some of these people that are what we call the regular students, you're like, well, I'm just as smart as they are.
That's
So
right.
having that confidence, kind of, no, it's okay. I got this. I belong here.
Let
So
me ask you guys, let's go into the classroom. Oftentimes, I felt it to be a disadvantage if I was wearing some of my team issued garb, clothing, or if I was near other athletes, from whether it's football or other sports. Oftentimes, the vibe I would get from most professors, not all, was that they really did not care for the athletes. They really either would single you out. Why are you missing my class on Friday? Because you got to travel to go to Gainesville for the game, that kind of thing. So and this is just my experience, I would dress not in my swag. I would dress like a regular kid. Well, not really, because they were really dressed up, but I would dress.
Yeah.
And I was part of the ball team or part of the football program. And I always hated that. I always hated that feeling. Did you
Right.
ever experience either that with your professors or maybe the other way around? Maybe your professors liked that you guys played football or liked sports. What was your experiences about that?
Jason?
I know, at least for me, I felt that on Peabody, Derek and I both went to Peabody College. I didn't feel it as much there. When I was on main campus, I kind of felt a little more on that side, kind of well, you're just here because you play football, so it makes you try to step your game up. But on Peabody side, I didn't feel it as much over there. I did, but not as much.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest, in my own personal experience, Bernard, what you're saying is spot on from my experience. Just because I think, and I kind of hope that the culture has changed since then. But I think in the mid '90s time frame, there were some professors that they I don't know how to put it, man. They just they weren't there to. It was hard. It was difficult. Like there were times when you knew you had to travel, and you felt like instructors had assignments due on certain dates, and you would ask for maybe a little bit of time because you knew you had to travel, and the only response was, well, you need to turn it in early. You know, they weren't gonna give that bit of grace at times. And now that I'm older, it's like, okay, that's fine. It's up to me to be responsible and take responsibility for the things I have due and turn them in on time and things like I understand it now. At the time, I felt like it was more personal, and so I had to really change my mindset to overcome those type of obstacles.
Now, fast forward 25 years. Yeah, you guys have been out of school for a while. I know I'm older. We're in such a mobile society with everything being online. I'll call them the modern athlete. It's a lot of flexibility because everything's sent in electronically.
Right.
Now they're even given less, I think, less time. Hey, I don't care where you are in the world, your assignment at midnight, you got to have it in. We don't care what your reason is. So there's a little bit of difference there because back in our day, everything was, at least for me, printed out and you had to physically turn it in by a certain time.
Yeah.
Let me ask you guys, or let me share with you, and I know you know this history a little bit. In the mid 80s, I came in with the class of 86. D. Greg and those 10 fellas came in 2 years later. And, most of those guys all pledged together. And it really, I think, was the largest at that time recruiting class of African-American athletes at one time on scholarship. I don't have studies. I'm just telling you what others have told me.
Sure.
Yeah.
Fast forward to 6-8 years later when you guys come on board. Was there any hesitation, any concerns, any thoughts about being minority and playing at a historically a pretty white, stuffy private school in the South? Was that even on your radar at that time? Because I'll tell you, the fellas and the guys who were recruited in the mid to late 80s, a lot of those guys, it was on their mind. It was a concern.
Wow.
I didn't know if the atmosphere or the culture or your mindsets when you guys came on in the mid 90s, years later, if any of that had changed or was even an issue for you.
I don't think it really was an issue for me. My high school at the time, at least, it was still fairly mixed school. Our football team was mixed. The church I grew up going to was a predominantly white church. So I it didn't really bother me that much. I didn't think about it too much. I think I was more so thinking about the quote rich kids, that aspect of it.
Oh, that question's coming in a second.
So regardless, because it gets to a point where it stopped being as much about race as it was about your culture.
Yeah.
And so that was I had my old beat up green big Ford LTD parked right beside the kids with their Mercedes Benz and Range Rovers and stuff. So that was a little difficult to get used to, but the race, for at least for me, didn't really come up.
What about you, Derrick?
I never worried about the race. I kind of filed that away as just one more thing I would have to overcome. Going to Vanderbilt for me, I think, was a big step out of my comfort zone. Both of my parents went to school, but they both went to school down in Florida. They went to Florida A&M University. And so the furthest north I got, my father actually graduated from Ole Miss as well. And that's where I was actually born in Oxford, but we didn't stay there very long. We moved back down further south. And so me moving to Nashville was kind of out of my family's comfort zone completely. So I kind of knew that going into it. Playing sports in college was new for my immediate family as well. So it was a lot of just leaning on faith, like, okay, this is what you're walking into. And at that time, I was extremely competitive. And so I was up for the challenge. Like, okay, this is fine. I will say that looking back on my experience, I would have gone further being more involved in campus activities and campus life in general. I think maybe I fell back on the life of an athlete too much at times. And I wish I would have taken the initiative to be much more heavily involved in the non-athletic activities on campus, because the campus itself has a wealth of opportunity with the people that you're in class with, the instructors that are teaching the classes, just the university itself. It has a wealth of opportunities in terms of making connections with folks, being exposed to folks from different cultures. And I didn't realize that at the time. And I just I took shelter with the fellas that I came in with and the few friends outside of that I made as well.
Yeah, it's, when you're an athlete, you kind of stay in your bubble.
Right.
We only had one or two guys who pledged a fraternity when I was in school. Just who has the time or the energy? I just wanted to sleep. But you're right. The regular student activities offered on campus, that's one of my regrets, that I didn't participate more in those things. And I saw them on all the time, but I always made an excuse to myself why I shouldn't or why I can't go do those. And so let me take you into that other question or other topic, but that may be more so of a haves and have-nots of any of these other topics. It's the stereotype of the average student is a very wealthy one, maybe a legacy, maybe they've had all of their family members come through there, or maybe they've a very wealthy community. In comparison, most of the athletes playing in the different programs are there only because they're on scholarship, whether it's full scholarship or whatever percentage.
Right.
A lot of my teammates relied on those Pell Grants every semester or every year that they came out. I don't even know if they have Pell Grants anymore, but it was a stipend, it was a supplement. and you didn't see, none of the guys, even, I mean, I came from a middle class, upper middle class family, but I couldn't be in a fraternity and do all that stuff.
Right.
That was extremely expensive.
Very expensive. Yeah.
And gosh, when you see particularly the girls, and I'm not trying to pick on Texas, but they'd all be so dressed up in class. And I just felt like, man, I just want to get a t-shirt on and roll, get black.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if that was y'all's experience. That's a stereotype, and I don't mean to cast that on everybody. I'm just sharing what I saw. But I don't know if y'all saw that as well.
Yeah, I mean, we go, like I say, you saw, like, when you look in the parking lot, and that alone could kind of tell you the story sometimes. Or you'd see, coming into college, especially given the time we were there, laptops and computers were still just kind of becoming a thing. So
yeah,
you'd see the stuff, they were bringing in on moving day. I'm like, oh my goodness, you got all that stuff. I was happy with some towels and some flip-flops. And they're coming in with desktop computers and printers, and a couple of them already had laptops already. And I was like, oh wow, okay.
Man, I
All
used
right.
one of our offensive linemen $1.25 a page to type my handwritten papers that I would write. He would type them, and it was on an old-fashioned typewriter.
Yeah.
wow.
Now, I was there 86 to 90, not that much earlier than y'all. But if you wanted electronic mail, you had to go to the computer science lab to just retrieve the email that somebody in the same room had written. That's anyway. That's just my. All right, let me take you guys and gosh, I'm having such a good time talking with Jason Smith and Derrick May, and we're just kind of all over the board right now. But Derrick, I don't want to get out of here without talking about your status and what's going on with your need for a transplant. So if you would kind of folks, we want to make sure that if we can help spread the word through social media or some other way, we want to be there as to the extent that you want or need us to be able to spread the word.
Yeah, I greatly appreciate the opportunity. Initially, I was diagnosed with kidney failure back in, as Jason was saying, 1996. It was first caught by the trainers at the time during our physicals before the beginning of that year. I guess at that point, I kind of had plans to come in and just take over. I won a starting job. I think we were opening the season with Notre Dame at home, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I was ready to get things going, and they kind of pulled me inside and said, "Hey, there's some concerning things in your blood work." And so, I honestly don't think I understood fully what was going on at that time, just being so young and everything. But I started on dialysis January of 2001, roughly about 4 months before graduating from grad school over in Peabody with my master's. And I was actually fortunate that although I was declared medically unable to play while at Vanderbilt, they told me I would still be receiving my scholarship, but I kind of wanted to do more. And so I approached at that time Brad Bates and some of the administration and really pushed to be involved somewhere, somehow. And so I began working in the Department of Facilities and Game Operations with Larry Swoops. And I did that throughout my time through my undergrad and graduate. And so I was very, very fortunate. For me personally, being on dialysis wasn't going to stop me from still living a full life and everything. And so I probably made some foolish decisions throughout the years, but just trying to live a normal life as much as possible. And I was actually transplanted back in 2009 at the same hospital Jason's at right now. And so my transplant lasted quite a long time, and I worked full time. But right now, all of my focus is on getting a second transplant because my transplant actually failed a few years ago. And unfortunately, that happens, but you gotta, just like Jason was saying, that whole Vanderbilt experience teaches you about perseverance. It teaches you about getting back up, facing obstacles like what you brought up about social economic status or race. You know, just being able to walk across that stage at Vanderbilt lets you know that you can do it under any and all circumstances. And so I've kind of taken that same approach even with this, with my health. Right now my focus is health and family and faith. And so right now I'm working towards getting active on the transplant list here. Um, just like Jason was saying, you hope for a live donor, but you just try to be where you need to be emotionally, physically, and spiritually for when that blessing comes. And it's actually funny because Jason actually ended up with the same exact diagnosis as I was only 20 years later. Isn't that right?
Yeah.
So, maybe we were a little bit too close back in college, a little bit may have rubbed off on him, I guess. But, it's definitely been a lifelong journey for me. But, I know all my friends and family, they continually pray for me and they keep me, keep me lifted in that way. And a lot of guys know me, and I think maybe back then, because I didn't really talk about it much, I know Jason beats me over the head about being more open with the experience. I'm sure guys back then didn't know what was going on with me and everything, but I'm working on being more communicative and open with the whole experience because everybody's got something going on at this point in our lives. You see all the gray on both of our faces and everything, and so everybody's got something going on, and we're all a family. We're here to support each other. So, if there's anyone that's wanting to support, reach out, touch base, shoot me a message, and I'll definitely follow up with them, let them know how they could be helpful. But definitely, I want to thank you for giving us the opportunity to come on and celebrate Jason getting a kidney transplant. Because although he's been cautiously optimistic, I've been over here celebrating since he called me that morning. Just claiming it for him. He's definitely tremendously blessed. And, it brought tears of joy to my face for him and his family. So I want to thank you, Bernard, for just giving us the forum, man. Thank you so much.
Derrick, it's absolutely my pleasure, and I appreciate you sharing your story. And while I don't have the friendship history that you have with Jason, I can assure Jason and you this whole week when I've been following your journey on social media, I have been celebrating cautiously the whole time.
Yeah, we've been fortunate. I started a Vandy Dad Needs a Kidney page, and it's grown, and we were kind of advised to do that through a living donor program we were in. You may be a private, and I'm generally a pretty private person, but they're like, you got to put it out there. Let people see what you're going through, because if you're going to need a living donor, I mean, you can pray for it all you want. That's what we're supposed to do, but you need to have some works to go along with that faith.
Right.
Well,
so we've.
If you have any help to spread the word, my friend, let's get on that. If you want or need any help of any sort getting the word out, certainly with our discussion, we'll put it on YouTube and let you guys share it out. But I gotta ask you as a side note, what was Coach Bates's role at Vanderbilt when you guys were coming through? Because I got a story or two to share with you. What was it? Was he the strength and conditioning coach at the time, or had he gone into an administrative role?
When we got there, he was in administration.
Yeah.
We do realize he was all Big Ten defensive Michigan. He was our strength and conditioning coach my years there. And he had a motto called SMA, sick mental attitude. And in the wintertime, he would divide the team into 3 or 4 teams, just all different, not by your positions, but everybody was mixed up. He would have competitions such as, the parking deck that's next to Memorial Gymnasium?
Right.
He would have to push a car up in the winter while it's snowing in February, up the parking deck for time with one of our trainers or managers sitting in the driver's seat every once in a while, putting the parking brake on.
Wow.
I remember hearing stories.
Crazy stuff like that. It was all innovative. It was just to keep you involved, keep you, not everybody enjoys debates and doing stuff. We try to keep it in.
I mean, I can definitely say from working with him, he brought that same type of intensity to the administrative side. Because, he would take the shirt and tie off and put on a tank top just to remind you of who he was on a daily basis and go outwork current players, and then go put his shirt and tie back on and go back to a meeting afterwards. That was not uncommon at that time. The guy is legendary.
Absolutely. Well, fellas, we've come to the end of our awesome conversation. I want to thank you both for sharing your stories, sharing your time, and just letting us know how you both doing these days.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
I want to just thank everybody we've had a lot of people reaching out to us. Lance Brown gave me a call and prayed with us before we went into surgery. He actually had Coach Mason shot me a text message of encouragement. Athletic director Candace Story, we went to college together. She gave me a little words of encouragement. It's been nice to have my coach, Coach Aiken, my position coach for the first few years there at Vandy, texted me to check in on me. So it's just been, that's one of the reasons why we're once a Commodore, always a Commodore.
Yes.
Absolutely. And guys, before we get out of here, I don't know if Chris has put on the group yet, but I'm pretty sure they're going to do another Zoom meetup to watch the game together this weekend. So if anybody wants to, I did it this past weekend. We had a lot of fun. The game wasn't a lot of fun, but the camaraderie was awesome. And if you want to get involved in the Black and Gold Club, they're just getting started. Chris Griffin is, of course, in charge of it. And Alfonso Harvey, who will be my guest next week, is the football liaison. So you guys reach out to him or either of those guys. And I'll have a great rest of your weekend. Let's anchor down.
Anchor down.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.